Hello, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This has been a very long awaited video that you guys have been waiting so long for. More so my Instagram followers because I'm really more active over there, but I'm trying to get more active on my YouTube channel. Anyway, this is my new home in New York. And you guys have been begging, asking, demanding, everything, praying for the house tour. And then also just for like an explanation of how I even got this place. Because if you've lived in New York before or you just know like the real estate market situation in New York, it is crazy. Like I'm obviously Australian. I actually grew up though on the Upper West Side in Manhattan and Scarsdale, and that's when I was much younger. And then we moved to Australia, and then I moved back here in 2019. Then the pandemic hit, so I left to go to London for the worst year of my fucking life. I mean, good things happened that year too, but it was pretty rough. Went there for about 10 months, and then decided to risk it and come back. I'm very glad that I did. So I was like aware that it can be a bit more difficult to get a place in New York, but I did not realize how difficult it would actually be. So basically, if you want to like live in New York City, you need one, a lot of fucking money. And two, you need to be able to prove that you are not a risky person for like a owner to provide a lease to, because they want to make sure that you're going to obviously pay the rent, and that if you don't, that they can go after you essentially. So anyway, I knew it was going to be a little bit risky coming here because I have no SSN at the moment because I'm waiting for my visa. I've got no credit history here because I don't have a credit card in America. I've never bought anything here. I've never bought a house here. I don't own any assets here. I don't have a bank account here. I've never paid any bills here. So I don't have a credit history here. And I run my own business is the other one. So when you run your own business, you're seen as like high risk basically, which to me is crazy because I feel like it's honestly more low risk because we are responsible for our income versus somebody else being responsible for our income. Anyway, so and like I made and like a lot of businesses went bust, yes, during the pandemic, but also so many people lost their jobs that work for other people. So it's like when people have this mentality of like working for someone else is safer, I'm like, well, that's actually not true. Anyway, beside the point. But obviously with my manifestation skills, I was like, I'm gonna get whatever I want, la la la, whatever. This video is more like a how I got this, like the logistical side of things for those of you that are interested. And then I'll have another video of the house tour. And then I'm going to have the manifesting side of it and everything that I was doing to manifest and these new manifestation tools that I have like learnt in the last like 4 or 5 months. That's going to be an MMM level 2. I'm going to do an extra module in there live. So this is just more of like the how to kind of side of things. Anyway, so I basically, when I was in Aspen, so I went to Tulum for a month, then I went to Colorado to go skiing for a month. This is when I left London. And when I was in Aspen, I started to look around. I basically came in contact with a really nice broker, and I was like, this woman's beautiful. She was going to start showing me some places whilst I was still skiing to get the ball rolling, X, Y, and Z, which was great. Fast forward a little bit, I just like wasn't finding anything that was too fantastic, or I'd find places that I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then because I have no SSN, no credit history, the owners would be like, no way. So the first apartment that I looked at with her was stunning. It was like 2,000 square feet, which is beautiful, which is huge in New York. And it had both north and south views. So you could see the Empire State Building. It was like really close to Empire State. And then it was kind of in Flatiron area, which is like still classified as downtown, but it's a bit more midtown than I'm very downtown. I'm in Tribeca. That one's like a little more, that's a bit more kind of midtown area. Anyway, but like insane fucking views and windows like all around. And it was really fucking big. So I was like pretty sold on that place. But then, of course, I was let down by the fact of you don't have a credit history, you don't have an SSN, like too hard. And a lot of the places that I would go and see, that was the reoccurring thing of like, you don't have an SSN, you don't have a credit history. No, we're not doing this. It's just too risky for people, which I understand. It's just very frustrating when it's like, but I could literally buy your fucking place. I could pay you a year's rent up front. And the thing is, a year's rent up front, like that's called escrow, and it used to be legal in New York, and now it's not legal. So even if you had the amount of money to pay up front, it's actually not legal anymore. You're not allowed to do it. So that wasn't even an option for me. And also that's kind of risky because what if like the landlords like did something wrong, or what if the building was like, what if the apartment was like terrible after you lived there for a month and all these leaks were happening or something and you never got your money back? So like I wouldn't do that anyway, full stop. Like that's being fucking stupid in my opinion, in a way. Um, anyway, so I kept looking and kept kind of coming across this roadblock. So eventually that first real estate agent, she was like, you need to start looking at rental buildings because they basically don't care as much. They're not like a co-op or a condo. So there's all these different like situations in New York where you can be like living in a co-op building or a condo. I don't really know the difference, but basically there's like, I think I live in a condo or a co-op. I don't know. I don't know. Basically, in a lot of the buildings in New York, you have to go through like a board approval process. So there's a board of the building and they have to approve you moving in. So it's not just like, oh, I like this building. I like this apartment. I have the amount of money, done, I'm in. It's like, no, you then have to be approved by other people. Do they like you? Do they not like you? Do they see you as like risky or a threat to the building or something? I don't fucking know. Um, anyway, so basically my real estate agent was like, we need to start looking at rental buildings because you don't have to go through this whole board approval process and they are going to be way more relaxed about the no SSN, no credit history. And so I was like, okay, well, like whatever, but there's no rental buildings in New York. Now there are obviously some, but they are not nearly as nice and they're not nearly as like upmarket, upmarket, high market, whatever. They're not nearly as bougie, let's just say, because pretty much anyone can get into a rental building. And what I found out from my dad is that with rental buildings, there's a certain amount of like studio apartments or whatever that the government like has to give to people under a certain amount that make under a certain amount of money, which then you can come across the problem of then maybe you have a nice apartment, but other people in the building don't have a nice apartment, and then they're the ones using the facilities all the time, and then the facilities can get really worn down, and there's just all these other things you have to think about when you are going into a rental building, and just the fact that it is just not as classy. And I personally was after something that was very fucking classy. I wanted a massive up level. I wanted something that pushed me out of my comfort zone. And I wanted something that lit a fire under my ass to like have to make my business succeed even more because I've got a big amount of rent to pay. So initially, I had kind of my budget for around like $6,000 a month. Um, well, that over doubled for this place. Because I mean, I just ended up having to be like, I know what I want and I'm just going to push myself and I'm going to get it. And I'll explain that in a second. But as the bottom line for anyone wondering, New York is very, very expensive, especially when it comes to like your like living expenses. So, if I paid what I did right now in like Melbourne, I would live in like an 8 bedroom mansion house with like a pool and a tennis court and probably a private fucking chef every day of the week. But living in New York, you part of what you're paying for is to live in New York. So if you can't be like, I don't think it's like I'm personally not, and most people are like this. You can't be annoyed about how expensive New York is if you want to live in New York, because part of living in New York is that price. Like, don't be stingy about it. If you don't want to pay that price, then like don't live in New York kind of situation. So the great thing about New York though is that everyone that lives here works hard because we all have to basically. So you meet very like-minded people and that we all have a very similar um, mentality when it comes to our work. Anyway, then I found the most gorgeous apartment. It was more than what I wanted, way more than what I wanted to pay. It was $16,000 a month, but I was like, maybe I'm willing to do it. And also, we were going to ask for below asking price. It was in a new building, which I thought was good until my dad made me aware of things. It was in a new building. The windows were fucking beautiful. Big kitchen, huge living dining area, 2 bedrooms, and you got north views and south views, which I loved because I wanted to see the Empire State Building, but I also wanted to see FiDi, which is what I have here, which I'll show you guys in the house tour. Anyway, then they were kind of going to do like, I think it was like 14,000 something. I can't remember. They were going to do a little bit below what they were asking for. But they then told me, that I was going to have to stay in one of their smaller apartments. This was a rental building, I will say. I was going to have to stay in one of their smaller apartments for a while because the people moving into the penthouse, their penthouse wasn't done, and they want to move into my build. They want to move into the apartment that I'm looking at. until they can move out. And I was like, okay, well, when are they going to move out? Well, we don't know. It could be like 2 months, 2 weeks. It could be 2 months. They were waiting for like city approval or something to like allow people to live in the penthouse. And initially, I was thinking about it because at this point, I'd been in a hotel for I think like 3 weeks in New York, and I was like fucking done with it. I was like, just get me an apartment. I just want to have a home. I'd been traveling since end of January, so I'd been like two and a half months of traveling with a dog in like 2 suitcases, and I was just like, I'm exhausted. I need a home. Anyway, fast forward as well with this situation, I still needed to have a guarantor. So because I didn't have an SSN and a credit history, basically like this rental building wanted me to have a guarantor, and you can ask a family friend to have a guarantor, but they have to have 80 times the rent in their bank account. And was what I know, maybe it's 80 times the rent of what they're making. I can't remember. They have to basically make 80 times the rent. I think it's what, yeah, make eight. So annually, I guess they have to make 80 times the rent, which is astronomical, right? Because if you're paying, even $10,000 in rent, you have to make 80 times that. So you have to make $800,000 a year to then be allowed to be a guarantor for someone to have a $10,000 rent. Is that right? 10,000 is then 800,000. Yeah. Anyway, um, so then I was gonna have to pay every month like some other fucking fee as well as my rent to then get this place for a guarantor. And I frankly was like, I don't need a fucking guarantor. Like they can look at my bank account and they can see that I could like pay 3 years up front or more. So anyway, then I actually started to talk to a new real estate agent. I think this is really, really important that a lot of us, and I think women especially, because we want to be nice to everybody, is we don't allow multiple people to like get the job done. So when I was in Aspen, I inquired on a website and I basically told them my situation, and this guy phoned me very randomly. It was a very like I don't even know how I came across the website, but like it was just a very meant to be kind of situation. Came across the website and this dude was like, I've got the perfect person for you. He deals with international clients that don't have SSN. And I was like, amazing. Anyway, so at the same time, he started to look for places for me. His name's Aman, and we're still friends. He came to my housewarming, and he's a legend because he got me this place. Anyway, um, he started looking for me, and he had a lot of fire, which is what I needed. I needed someone that was going to fight for me, and that was going to like put their foot down when someone was like, "Oh, it's a bit of a sketchy case or whatever." He'd be like, "No, it's not, guys." I needed that, and my female broker that I had, she just was too nice. She really was too nice, which is fine if I'm having dinner with her, but not fine in this kind of situation. I needed a specific person for my case. So she was still looking for a couple of places and she wasn't coming up with any kind of solutions to the issue, right? Then one day I was talking to a man on the phone and I was telling him about this like whole place that I'd found, and they wanted me to like stay in a different one until the penthouse was done so that people could move into the penthouse. And he looked at me and he went, Monica, don't take this the wrong way, but you are not the kind of woman that gets told to wait. And I was just like, he said something like that. I can't remember what, but it was something like that. And I was just like, a fucking men. And so then I phoned that real estate agent and I was like, I'm not taking the place. And I was like, I'm not fucking going into some other place, like some other apartment and having to move again in God knows how long. It could be fucking 2 weeks or it could be 2 months. It could be 2 fucking years. So I was like, nope, not happening. Anyway, him telling me that, I was like, oh, I like this. And this was like the start of then us really looking for places and me really trusting him because I was definitely a little bit in that push and pull of like, oh, I feel bad for having two real estate agents. But the more that I got into it and the more that I've learned through this process, the more that I'm like, no, you should have fucking 5 real estate agents because if you want a job done well, they need competition because they make money based off whoever the client goes with. So Aman made the money because I went with him and he found me this place and he fought for it and he worked really hard for it. So he got the money from me, right? Oh, yeah. When it comes to also getting a place in New York, you have to remember that you have to pay your 1 month's rent as a security deposit up front. You have to pay 1 month's rent up front. You have to pay 1 month's rent to your broker. And very often, I had to, in my case, and this is very common, you also have to pay 1 month's rent to the like owner's broker. So all up, I was paying 4 months rent in one go, basically, which is just something to like factor in as well. Like you need a lot of money moving to New York, especially that like first kind of month. Anyway, so I found, or maybe he found, I can't remember. One of us found a different apartment in this building. And so we went to go look at it. I think he might have found it. We went to go look at it, and I was kind of a bit like about the place. I really wanted somewhere where that felt like I could meet a lot of people, and that kind of stuff, because I was definitely afraid of coming to New York and not meeting very many people. Anyway, so he showed me an apartment, in a different apartment in this building, and actually the broker for the owner, so the other broker, was a creep, I will say, and he was like taking pictures of me and shit. And I told him on after, and I'm like, I'm not going to that place because of that. And he was like, oh my God, you should have said something. I would have fucking like punched the guy in the face. Like, no, no, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. But like, that guy's, I'm not getting that apartment. Anyway, and we kept looking and I couldn't really find anything else. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll get the apartment. I was kind of at this point, I was like willing to settle, which don't do that. Anyway, so we then reached out to him and we were like, okay, we want to get this apartment. Like, what are you guys willing to do for the no SSN, no credit history? Because Aman had asked the other broker before we went to go see it, this is her case. Will the owners be accommodating if she decides she wants it? And they said yes. So we were like, great, let's go see it, because if she likes it, then she's gonna take it. So we then basically were like, yep, we want to put an offer in, blah blah blah. And of course, they were like, too hard. And that made me so angry, because they had said to us that they were going to be accommodating and they fucking weren't. Anyway, it just felt like this constant push and pull when I was looking for apartments. Like, it's very emotionally draining. Like, you find these beautiful places and you're like, oh my God, this is my home. And then my mum, who was my interior designer, I'd be paying her to start like putting the plans together and think of furniture, and this is the room, and what are we gonna do? And then of course they'd be like, nope, we don't want you to live here. And then I'd be like, okay, back to square one again. So it was very, very emotionally draining, and there were so many tears being shed, and I was just fucking exhausted by this point. At one point in here, I then just kind of said to Aman, I need a break. I need to stop looking for a few days. And he was like, I agree. So I like stopped looking for like, I was going to stop looking for like 2 days. I think it was like half a day. And then I just had a little look on the internet and I found this place, this one here. But it wasn't available for a like month or something. And I thought it was east facing because it said the number of my apartment and then east. And I was like, oh, I don't really want east facing. But then I was like, let's just like go and have a look. So we organized a viewing, came into the building, and I was like, this is my apartment. And someone was living here beforehand, so all their furniture was in it, which did not do it justice compared to now my stuff. But it was just like the view, the energy of the place, like the flow of the apartment is really beautiful. So the energy flows really well. Whereas the previous apartment that I'd seen in this building, the flow of energy didn't flow. As soon as you walked to the front door, you were hit with a wall, and there was like a big foyer area with a big wall right there. So the energy would just constantly be bouncing out. It wouldn't like flow in. But here I've got like a long hallway and it flows into this beautiful view. So very different. Anyway, then we found this place, and then the whole process began. Of course, I was thinking like 2 weeks I'm going to be in. Well, no. So essentially what happened is, we put the offer in. Well, how did it go? We put the offer in. They were open to the fact that I didn't have an SSN, la la. Oh yeah, and I remember this one night I was on the phone to Aman, and out of the blue I was like, wait, question for you. Can I have like someone else that's on the application, but I'm the one that pays the rent, like I'm the one that lives there? And he was like, oh, like a co-applicant. Yeah, totally. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't we think of this? Because basically how I got this place was I had a co-applicant. So my co-applicant is like, has got an SSN, has got a credit history. So if I wasn't paying the rent, he'd be the one that would get into shit. But of course, he saw my financials and he was like, "You're fine." So I asked my friend Dom, who is just the best man in the fucking world. Um, and I phoned him and I was like, this is a really big ask. Like, there's no pressure. Please think about it. And like, you are allowed to say no, obviously, and it will never affect our friendship, blah, blah, blah. And he thought about it and he was like, I trust you with my fucking life. Like, I'm down. I just want to see all your financials. Can I just like he just wanted an email from my dad, basically, where like they had a little kind of written contract thing via email, just saying like if for unforeseen circumstances happened and Monica couldn't pay for the rent, Dom would never be out of pocket, like with one fucking cent. Um, Anyway, so Dom put in so much effort, like as much effort as me, as doing all this fucking paperwork. We had to get like a million references. It was like I had to get 4 references, he had to get 4 references. We had to go to meetings, we had to meet the people, and they were all the way uptown, and it was just constant back and forth, error here, do this, upload this information, fucking write these things in a million one times. Like it honestly was so much paperwork. And all I can say is you need a good real estate agent. Majority of real estate agents are not going to be your fucking support dude as well. I was very lucky in that I found a real estate agent that was only a few years older than me. And we just got along really, really well. So we became friends. So he was also happy to like support me and be there for me when I was fucking crying and when I was exhausted and all that jazz. Majority of real estate agents, they don't have time for that. So like I've one of my past Baptist students, she's a real estate agent coach, and she is a real estate agent, but she also coaches women through this program through this process. And like if you need that, like if you're getting a house, if you're buying a house, if you're getting an apartment, oh my God, it can be such a process. You need someone like her to, I'll put her details below. You need someone like her to like support you through this because I was lucky in that Aman would explain all the terminology to me. He would explain things over and over and over again that I wouldn't understand. But not every broker is going to do that because that's not their job to sit there and like hold your fucking hand. But if you hire someone like Marina, that's her job. So you want to make sure that you've got people that like really know what they're doing and that are there solely for your support because my God, is it so emotionally draining to feel like I've got an apartment and then it gets like pulled away from you or there's all these questions or you're just scared if it's going to happen and you're waiting and waiting and waiting. Anyway, so I met the owner and like he saw all of my bank accounts and I showed him how the business has done in the last couple of years. I showed him like even like my monthly expenses so he knew that like it wasn't like I was making this much but spending this much. It was like I was making this much but only spending this much. Um, and all that kind of stuff. And obviously he saw all of Dom's financials and credit history and all that jazz. And I fucking manifested this because long story short, at the end of the day, what he said to me was, look, what I'm doing is like a bad business decision, like in the business world, because you're risky, right? It's like I'm stupid for doing this. But he said to me this word for word, I believe you have a really good heart and I want someone like you to live in my apartment. And that's why he gave me the apartment essentially. Also, his broker did say, I think this chick's going to be famous in 2 years and then you'll regret not having her. And let me tell you guys, this apartment building, like you would know the building, the Jenga building, everyone has pretty much figured out where I live, the Jenga building in New York. And like so many people, so many famous people live here. It is like a, what did someone tell me last night? It's a is it a monument or like a, it's like, yeah, a monument, like a statue kind of thing. Like it's a work of art in the city. It's not just a building. And you would know it when you look up and you see it in the skyline. It looks like a stack of Jenga. Anyway, this is like one of the hardest buildings to get into in New York. They have this full fucking board process. You got to be approved by the board, la la la. Their protocols through the fucking roof, and like really high security. Very very like everything is like dot your I's, cross your T's kind of situation. And so I was like happy to kind of go for like an in between building, but I knew what I wanted. I set my attention and I did not stop until I got what I wanted. And I ended up literally getting the best apartment ever. And I'm 500 feet up. I have a balcony. Like I had a long list also of what I wanted, which made it even harder, right? Because it's one thing if I was happy to have a like an apartment not like this. Like if I wasn't looking for something like this, it'd be totally different. But I was looking for a big bathtub, two bedrooms, two bathrooms. Like I wanted two bathrooms. I wanted a big living and dining room. I wanted a big kitchen. I wanted an island bench. I wanted floor to ceiling windows. I wanted lots of natural light. I wanted like amenities. I wanted a really good view. I wanted a balcony. I wanted really high ceilings. What else did I want? I did want a fireplace, but that is like literally impossible in New York, so I've settled for not having a fireplace. I wanted a walk-in wardrobe. I wanted, I think that's everything. Like I was very, very clear on what I wanted, and I've gotten all of that minus the fireplace, which is fine. I'll put the fireplace on my TV in winter, or go to like one of the sexy lobbies. Anyway, so that also made it harder, right? If I wasn't happy to just go for somewhere with like, I would see places that were really nice, but then the bathtub would be one of those like shower baths, and I'm like, no. And there were definitely points towards the end of this process where I was so exhausted that I was just gonna like be like, whatever, give me anything, but I didn't. And I will say as well, like this getting this place was a huge up level. And when I first saw that first apartment in this building, I I was like about it also because it didn't feel like I could be in there because it didn't feel like it was like, oh, this is me when I'm like 28, 29. Like it just didn't even feel like me yet. And I really had to like expand my nervous system and like quantum leap to get this place. I was doing so much quantum leaping work to get this place because I had to be in the energy of like I already had it essentially. Anyway, I wrote all these notes down and I like have any reference them. Let me just check that I've gone through everything. I think I've gone through everything. So many ups and downs. Yep. Just like you have got no idea unless you live in New York, the fucking work that goes in to finding an apartment here is absolutely crazy. So then it was all approved, signed. Then we had this whole money issue because my money was getting sent from overseas. And when the money was getting sent, the bank accidentally put in the wrong account number by like one digit. So it was sitting in limbo forever. And so then the owner got really stressed of like, oh my God, is this chick like just, fucking with me and she's not going to send me the money? Oh my gosh. And that was stressing me out, of course, because I was like, oh my God, I do not want him to not trust me. I do not want him. And we didn't know what was going on with the money until the company was like, oh my God, we're so sorry. It was our fault. Anyway, they wrote a letter saying this was not Monica, this was us. And so, of course, then my owner was like, okay, it's fine. It wasn't her. And then I got the money sent over and everything, which again took quite a while because international processing times, la, 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 la. So that held everything up. The money definitely, and like that time of getting everything through really held things up. Like, remember that wire transfers can take like a week sometimes. Um, and then they had to go through the whole building protocol to get me in the system, la la. So they kept giving me these move-in dates, and then it wouldn't happen. Like, okay, yes, like next Wednesday, like it's gonna happen. And it would get to Tuesday, and then Wednesday, like you're not moving in today. So I'd have to then phone the hotel and extend the hotel. Oh yeah. Meanwhile, I'm living in a hotel for 2 fucking months, and I had to change rooms multiple times towards the end of it, and I was just so exhausted because I'd collated so much shit at this point with a dog. It's like having a child. And it was just like I didn't have enough space to work. I couldn't work out. The gym wasn't open at the hotel because of fucking COVID. And it was just like I was so claustrophobic. I was so antsy. I was so just like not I was just aggravated and agitated is the right word. Anyway, so my move-in date kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And it was just like it was crazy. Anyway, so like I was meant to move in on like May 1st, and then I ended, was it May? No, March, April, May. No, June 1st, I think. Was it June 1st or May 1st? I can't remember. I think it was June 1st. That'd make more sense. Anyway, and then it was like pushed back 2.5 weeks, and I kept getting pushed back, and then um I like phoned the dude and I phoned my broker and I had a fucking meltdown. I was like, you need to get me in this place. Like I literally am about to fucking die being in a hotel. And I know it's a first world problem. Like I'm not denying that. Um, I know sometimes people will be like, oh my God, living in a hotel for 2 months hard, but it actually is really hard because to be that closed in, to not have your own space, no kitchen, like we're talking no space and a dog. When you are used to a lot of space, it is really, really challenging. Anyway, and then we manifested so hard for me to move in the next day. And I put it on my Instagram story. And I will say, whenever I put something on my Instagram story that I need to manifest, you guys nail it every single time when I put it on. So I put on my Instagram story, please help me. I'm moving in tomorrow. I'm moving in tomorrow. I'm moving in tomorrow. And I get the phone call that morning of like, you're moving in today. It's all been approved. Get your shit, get over there. And of course, it all seemed like, oh my God. And then, of course, I arrive and I'm like, I have no plates, I have no cutlery, I have no bed, I have no, like, I was like, I don't have anything. So I stayed in the hotel for a few more days, but I like had my shit here. I would hang out here. And it was just knowing that like it had been done was the main thing anyway. Um, Anyway, and then very, very slowly all the furniture started to come in. But let me tell you, oh my God, it took so long for the furniture to arrive. It was about a 3 month process. We got our last bit of furniture today. We're gonna do a bit more of the artwork, but otherwise it's done. Yeah, it's taken so long because of COVID and everything. Because ordering something and then there's like a wait list for it, and things have to get made, and then there has to be a delivery time available for them to then deliver it, and I have to be available. Anyway, so for ages I had my mattress on the floor, which is very usual, and like a shitty Home Depot plastic table, but I made do because I was like, I don't care, I'm living in the apartment. And once I got a sofa, it made a big difference having a sofa. I'm just like somewhere to kind of like chill. But it's been amazing since having like my dining table, which only came last Wednesday, like a week ago. It's been amazing since having all of it because I can now entertain. Look how big that plane is. It's so low. What the fuck? I've never seen a plane that low. Anyway, um, it's made a really big difference. And I will say one thing that I have learnt intensely over this last 4 or 5 months is fucking patience. Like, I usually have about this much of patience, and now I have about this much. So we're getting there. But it's challenging and it's also rewarding, and I am never fucking moving out of this apartment. Like, I swear to God, it has been a process, and I am never leaving. And I will say also, you need to hire an interior designer. I wrote this in the I wrote an article in this in the ninth issue of the magazine. I'll put the link below. That I never realized how hard it is to like do interior design until I hired an interior designer, because I couldn't even like make decisions with an interior designer, let alone myself. They have an insane eye and I could never do their job. It's just made me like appreciate interior designers and like architects and all that kind of stuff so much more, because I think there's a confusion sometimes, right? Like, I have an appreciation for beautiful spaces. So I've always thought, oh, I could do that myself. But no, like, I could never do this shit myself. Like, the way that it's all been pulled together, and even just like the tiniest little fucking details, is just amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So that is that. MMM level two, I'm going to go through some of the manifesting things I did in that. So if you want to join that, you can. Otherwise, make sure that you watch the video of the house tour. And I hope that you enjoyed listening to this story, because man, was it a ride. It was a roller coaster. It was so emotional. It was so exhausting. And like, moving into here and just having that like relief was like a physical relief as well. So I think I've covered everything for you guys. And hopefully it wasn't too boring and it was a little bit fascinating. But yeah, the main thing, the reason why I wanted to just do this also was because I think it's so easy for people to kind of look at the apartment now and everything and be like, oh, she just got that so easily. It was so easy for her. And it's like, no, it was not easy at all. It was so challenging. And I would not have gotten this if I came to New York even like 2 weeks later, because the reason why like all these apartments were available and stuff was because of COVID. And about like a couple of weeks after I arrived, everyone started coming back into the city. And I was just so lucky to have found this place beforehand and all that jazz. Otherwise, who knows? The owner totally could have just gone for someone with a way easier case. So I'm grateful that I came when I did. And yeah, know what you want, stick at it. And if I can get this apartment in like the hardest building to get an apartment in New York with no SSN, no credit history, nothing, as I'm waiting for my visa, then everyone else can as well.